Chapter 1. Derailed. Candy Snow Mountain. No kissing, no sleepovers, no flirting in public. These were the rules between him and her. Regardless of what happens in bed, there should always be separation under the bed. On this point, Yu Huan and Gao Yan have always done very well. Until the law firm where Yu Huan works has a new intern, and the person that is Gao Yan's nephew, things start to go off the rails. Chapter 1, Blind Date. Yu Huan is not a fan of this blind date. According to her best friend Sinci, this blind date has a high income and a good personality, which is very suitable for her anyway. Yu Huan did not have a date on the weekend. Sinci persuaded Yu Huan, why not give each other a chance to at least have a meal together. The dinner venue was chosen at a Chinese restaurant, close to Yu Huan's apartment, which doesn't take up too much of Yu Huan's transportation time, and is the reason why Yu Huan agreed to this blind date. Remember to dress up nicely, her friend told her before she left. Yu Huan, in line with the basic respect for the blind date, put on full makeup, washed her hair, and went out in a decent manner. When she arrived at the restaurant, it was exactly 7:55. There were still 5 minutes to go before the appointed time. My friend made a reservation. Yu Huan reported Sinci's phone number. Just a moment. The receptionist inputs the number into the computer and looks up after a while. Table 15. Yu Huan looked in the direction pointed out to her and saw a table not far away by the window with a man sitting next to it, hidden in the shadows of the wooden ceiling beams. The man's hair was still thick, his side was clean and sharp, and his height was at least 10 centimeters above average. From the appearance of the opening, it was not bad, much better than the crooked introduced by the relatives before. But Yu Huan did not have any expectations. For those who are busy, a blind date is a way to start a new relationship. But Yu Huan does not expect to meet anyone through this form of matchmaking to set people up with each other. It's not about romance, it's just that the older you get, the less you have left to look forward to. It's hard to fall in love, it's hard to be right, and it's even harder to last. The people who get to spend their lives with the person they love are always in the minority. Relationships and marriages are far less reassuring than the numbers on a bank card for a woman like her, who has been in a relationship but is still single and about to enter her golden years. But she didn't show it. Mr. Chong? She walked to the table and took her place opposite the man, greeting him with a smile. Ms. Yu. The other party looked up at the words, a flash of amazement in his eyes, and politely rose. Miss Yu's picture is already beautiful. I didn't think it was even more beautiful in person. Half compliment, half sincere. Thank you. Yu Huan is not surprised inwardly, and only smiles. I've kept you waiting. Taking a seat, ordering food. Usually, a man and a woman, the first time they meet, usually talk about some irrelevant nonsense, weather, stars, social news. By picking up the conversation each other interested in the topic, keeping each other's temperament and outlook on the three, to determine whether it is necessary to have the possibility of a second appointment. But blind date this behavior, the conversation purposefulness extremely on much stronger. I heard that Ms. Yu is a lawyer, that usually double off? Sure enough, not long after being seated, the man across from Yu Huan asked. This was the misconception that most people had about lawyers. The image of lawyers that they were familiar with came from TV dramas, thinking that this group was all as glamorous as they were on TV, with high incomes and free time. The reality was far from that. Not really. Yu Huan explained, it's almost 996 when we're busy, and we travel from time to time. That busy? Are you on the civil litigation side of things or? I don't do litigation. I am non-litigation, mainly to provide legal advice to enterprises, the daily affairs of the legal review and business negotiations. Oh. Help enterprises to do things then your income should be very high, right? Okay. A child, Yu Huan out of the restaurant, the matchmaking man will send her to the door of her neighborhood, and then waved with her to say goodbye. He probably counted the time. Yu Huan just returned to the apartment. The other party's text message sent in, asking, arrived? I'm here, Yu Huan replied. Then after waiting for a while, the other party's text message sent over again, early rest. There is a paragraph after it, to the effect that today's meeting is very pleasant, and then politely expresses that the two are not very suitable, and hope to be friends. Yu Huan looked at the text message and did not feel surprised. This was not the first time. Men in the dating market, looking for a marriage partner more or less hope to find a woman they can hold like Yu Huan this kind of profession. Every day dealing with people who are not rich or expensive, she herself is beautiful, the average man is difficult to have the heart to marry home. But they reject it at the same time, will also express the hope to be friends, in addition to politely give the place to save face, there are half as sincere. After all, people, in the community always inevitably encounter some things, the key time, there is a lawyer friend to give some advice is also good. Yu Huan replied along with the words of the other party, thank you today, next time I have the opportunity to invite you to dinner. After the text message was sent, she threw her cell phone aside and drilled into the bathroom. Bath out, Yu Huan once again picked up the phone, saw the blind date man's last reply, you're welcome, and accompanied by a pleasant expression. In addition, WeChat shows that there are still 2 unread, one of which is from Cincy, how is the blind date? Yu Huan took the mask from the refrigerator, and while applying the mask, she dialed Cincy. Voice a connection, the phone on the other side of it Cincy asked her anxiously how the blind date, Yu Huan simple back to report the situation, Cincy listened to, after a period of silence, said, is that he has no vision. Yu Huan responded casually. She did not intend to be arrogant, so what she did not say was, although the other party's appearance is not bad, the income is also good, but from the straight to the point of the conversation, as well as talking to her slightly confused and lack of focus in the narrative, his IQ and IQ are not too high. She didn't press the other side either. By the way, did whoever that was add you to WeChat? Seeing Yu Huan's silence, Cincy asked again. Who? Yu Huan. Lu what came, the name I also forget. Just Lu Gigi's colleague, last time at our wedding, you have seen. Chapter 2. It was then that Yu Huan remembered that there was that one person, the name of whom she couldn't remember either, but the other person did ask Cincy to convey his favor to her. You mean that little boy? If I'm not mistaken, I remember you saying that he's from the 9th year, it's not quite appropriate for an old cow to eat young grass, is it? It's only 3 years younger, it's not a lot, maybe it's your destiny, besides, even if you can't fix it, it's okay to talk about it. You're always alone like this, it's not good. What's bad about being alone? It's not that it's bad to be alone. Cynthia, don't you want to have a boyfriend? Not having sex for too long can affect your endocrine system. The voice over there suddenly lowered. Yu Huan suddenly didn't know how to answer. She just didn't have a boyfriend, but not no sex life. At this moment, on her brightly lit cell phone screen, there was an unread message from 20 minutes ago. I'm getting off the plane, I'll be at your house at about 11 o'clock. Chapter 2, The Bombshell. Hanging up the phone, the wall clock on the wall showed 10:50, 10 minutes from the agreed time. Yu Huan uncovered the mask and went to the bathroom to rinse it off. When she came out again, the screen of her cell phone briefly lit up. It was a text message coming in. The sender was from Gao Yan, only 2 concise words, arrived. It seems that the road is not bad at this point. Yu Huan put down her phone and opened the door. Gao Yan was standing in the doorway. Back from your business trip? Did it go well? Fine. Gao Yan entered the house, took off his jacket and placed it on the sofa aside. Weekend off? It was rare to have a double weekend off. Then you can sleep late tonight. Gao Yan laughed and said, his body then pressed up against hers. There was a rustling sound of clothing rubbing together. He hugged her, his chin buried in the nest of her shoulder, kissing her neck as if he was a long-time lover, rubbing it hard for a few moments before he mumbled, I'm going to take a shower first. Letting go of Yu Huan, Gao Yan lightly entered the bathroom. It wasn't the first time. Yuan didn't need to tell him to switch for the hot water or the location of the bath towel. Where? The bedroom or here? Soon, the man wrapped in a bath towel once again pressed up. Bedroom, Yuan said, and then his entire body was picked up. The weightlessness of her body free-falling in the air made Yuan feel like she was floating for a moment, and when she came back to her senses she was already lying on her back on the bed. The man reached out and lifted up her nightgown, and began to kiss her a little bit upwards. In this regard, Yuan had always felt that Gao Yan was a practiced man. Yuan was ruffled by his feather-like kisses to the point where her body went soft, and she couldn't help but hum softly in her throat, raising her arms and hooking her arms around his neck. The bedroom didn't turn on the lights, so the two of them just rubbed against each other in the darkness. The one thing that is more comfortable than a lover is that you don't have to worry about the other person's opinion. If you have a boyfriend and you show too much openness, you might worry that the other person will mind your past love history, but with a fuck buddy, this worry doesn't exist. Yuan was fully engaged with this hardy. I don't know how long it took before everything finally subsided. He was there smoking. I still remember the first time he smoked in her house. It was also this kind of aftermath. He took out the cigarette case and asked her if she wanted one. She shook her head, and then, he turned around and went to the balcony by himself. At that time it was in the middle of winter. Although here is a southern city, winter night outdoor is only 4 or 5 degrees. He specially closed the floor-to-ceiling windows, so wrapped in a towel standing in the balcony, finished, she asked him not cold, he only shook his head, and then wait for the hands and feet warmed up and then come to embrace her. In Yuan's cognition, men are very lazy. The first acquaintance is always all kinds of heart, all kinds of details full. Wait until after right, but lazy again for you to do the original thoughtfulness, even if 50%. Gao Yan is an exception. Yuan thought, the reason why she can do so long with him as a fuck buddy, a big reason lies in this, whether it is every time to make love before the necessary cleaning, or thoughtful foreplay, or smoking. He was consistently patient and considerate, with a good grasp of the situation. I think I'm done with the recent case in Zhongqing. Do I still have to work overtime every day? After returning from smoking, Gao Yan asked. A little better than before. Yuan, what about you guys? We're almost done with the cooperation there, so we can relax a bit. Gao Yan, look at your circle of friends, learning to swim? Well, recently the cervical spine is not very comfortable. The doctor recommended swimming. I remember you can swim, right? Yes. How long have you been learning? How long? I learned when I was a kid. You have to ask exactly how many lessons. I don't remember. The two had a conversation. Apart from work matters, the two did not have too many intersections in their lives on weekdays, except for the occasional sleep, and there wasn't too much to talk about. When the topic was gradually finished, Gao Yan took the initiative to shorten the distance of a few fingers wide between the two of them. It's to 0, sticking to Yuan's shoulder. She went to the bathroom, and by the time she rinsed off and came out, Gao Yan had already changed his clothes. Let's go. He took his jacket in his hand and stood in the bright and dark junction between the living room and the bedroom and said to her. He never spent the night at her place. Just like they wouldn't kiss, they didn't need to make a pretense of saying goodbye. Yuan answered and went straight into the bed. Turn off the lights in the living room. The next day was Monday. The morning of the working day was as usual. The CBD neighborhood was filled with traffic, and the towering buildings cut the sky into irregular shapes. After a rare complete weekend off, Yuan finally got her blood back. She took the elevator from the negative floor to the first floor with energetic steps, and just as the elevator closed, she suddenly bumped into Naidi, the receptionist, who was in a hurry. She was carrying a coffee and almost bumped into someone. Yuan helped her to stabilize, and the other party took it with a gasp and managed to calm her breathing. Thank you. Yuan glanced at her watch. There are still 10 minutes left, no need to rush. The other party shook her head. I have to hurry up and get ready. Fred sent a message just now, saying that Mr. Gao will be coming over in a while. The Mr. Gao in Naiadi's mouth was Gao Yan, the general manager of Lushang Group. Chapter 3. Lushang and Yuhuan's law firm is in a long-term cooperative relationship. In addition to Lushang's own company's business, Gao Yan will also introduce them to a lot of cases every year, which is considered the law firm's VVVIP customers. Is there any new case? Yuhuan looked through her cell phone, and there was no movement in the law firm group. I don't know. The receptionist shook her head, and after a while, but there's an intern coming. An intern? Well, it's said to be Mr. Gao's nephew, just graduated and returned to China. Mr. Gao's intention is to let him come to our law firm to familiarize himself with the domestic legal environment, so that he can go to the company to help out in the future. Law firm in the 23rd floor, not enough gossip finished, the elevator at once to have arrived. Naiadi rushed to prepare tea to entertain the guests. Yuhuan went to the pantry to brew a cup of coffee, and then out. High feast people have arrived. He today a formal dress, wearing a pair of metal-rimmed glasses, hidden behind the lenses of the face angular, deep eyebrows. A look of a stranger do not approach, with and embed a different person. Mr. Gao. Yuhuan nodded in greeting. Lawyer Yu. Gao Yan responded coldly and courteously. Yuhuan glanced at the people behind him. Compared to Gao Yan's formality, the person behind Gao Yan was dressed casually, a round-necked sweater with casual pants and sneakers. He was tall and sturdy, and his stretched limbs revealed a vigorous energy and vigor. 21 or 22? Yuhuan thought, this should be the right intern who will soon join the company. Chapter 3, Fellow Countrymen. Xin Yilan. This was the name of the intern Yuhuan saw in the group. Gao Yan had just led people into Fred's office, and everyone in the law firm's other touchy-feely group that avoided the leaders started gossiping. Yuhuan turned on her computer and glanced at it from time to time as she combed through the new week's work, and when she finished her work and went out to do her errands, Naiadi was leading Xin Yilan on a tour of the office. This is our work area. Just now that's Fred's office. He's the most senior lawyer here and our boss, but a lot of the time he's not here. If there's anything we usually look for Reese, he's a partner. His office is at the end of the corridor on the left, third door on the left. Naiadi was petite, less than 160, standing next to Xin Yilan, who was 1 meter 8 plus, like a hobbit. Xin Yilan, on the other hand, relocated sideways and put his head down, listening very attentively. It is said that nephews are like uncles. Xin Yilan eyebrows handsome, looks and Gao Banquet does have a few points of similarity, but Yuhuan memory, Gao Banquet has never been this. Easygoing, shortness of breath, even if occasionally humble, the bones are still permeated with the superiority of the superior and calm. Yuhuan thought, coldly. Xin Yilan's line of sight swept over. The two gazes in the air, he seems to be a little surprised, and instantly towards her a smile, cheeks vaguely revealed 2 dimples. These facial features, smiling is quite nice. When Yuhuan went to work the next day, the receptionist had already assigned Xin Yilan a position. His desk was more like a cubicle, conveniently located near Fred's office, where there were glass windows and glass doors. There was a large wooden table in the center of the room, with a rack of CDs behind it and encyclopedia-sized legal reference books next to it. According to the firm's hierarchical structure, Xin Yilan was not supposed to get such a nice office. However, given the business that Gao Yan brought to the lawyers every year, it was understandable that the office was empty given that the previous colleague had resigned and left. At the moment, Xin Yilan was sitting alone in his office, absent-mindedly flipping through documents while looking around through the glass walls and glass doors, seemingly a bit bored. Everyone, if you need any help you can give it to our intern Yilan. In the group, Fred explained early in the morning. However, half a day since the message was sent out, no one squealed. Xin Yilan, a rich second generation, had come to a few law firms in the past, and usually worked as a paid fish catcher, leaving in less than 2 or 3 months, sometimes not enough time to follow through on a big case. For this kind of rich second generation, we are generally provided, or eat together to make friends, make good relations, so that the other side of the case in the future on what to introduce over, no one expects him to do any serious work. Probably also realizing this, after being bored at his workstation for quite a while, Shin Yilin walked out of the office. That, Counselor In, is there anything you need help with? Seemingly deciding to take the initiative, he picked the nearest workstation and asked. Amy looked up at Shin Yilin, a little surprised and seemingly unable to refuse, froze before taking out a document. Make 5 copies of this for me. Shin Yilin was a little stunned, or nodded with a smile, okay. Copying, printing, handing documents. One morning, no one was serious about arranging any work for Shin Yilin. At noon break, Yuhwan looked again. There was already no one, but instead, someone had been busy in the pantry. It smells good. A colleague who passed by the pantry muttered. Yuhwan also smelled it, as if it was the smell of black coffee, because the convection of the air drifted straight towards her office. You're making coffee? Yuhwan got up to pour the tea. Yeah, I see everyone is so busy, I can't help much, so I'm making some coffee for everyone to refresh themselves. Shin Yilin said, handing the cup in his hand to Yuhwan as he spoke. Try it. Inside was, unsurprisingly, a deep black liquid. Yuhwan raised an eyebrow, but still took the cup in Shin Yilin's eager eyes, and just after taking a sip, Shin Yilin immediately looked at her expectantly. How is it? Not bad. Yuhwan honestly commented. Really? Shin Yilin's expression immediately looked like it had been lit up, the corners of his mouth raised in an unstinting smile. I'll go serve it to them. The coffee was fragrant. 10 minutes later, the entire office was filled with the strong smell of coffee, while Yuhwan was called into the office by Reese using an intercom. This coffee is quite good, huh? Reese sat on the office chair, holding a cup, but Mr. Gao stuffed someone in, not to learn how to make coffee for us. Yuhwan probably guessed what he meant. Then you find someone to bring him in. Reese nodded. You can take him for these 2 months. Me? Chapter 4. Well, of all the law firms qualified to take on interns, you're the only one whose age is less different from his, and besides, I looked at the kid's resume, and he's from your hometown. When Reese came out of his office, Yuhwan asked Nayade for a copy of Shin Yilin's resume. It was not a top-ranked school in the US, but not a bad one either. He majored in law and minored in computer science, and had a wide variety of internships, but it didn't help him much in his law firm job. Shin Yilin's resume is not too impressive. If it is not Gao Yan's relationship, I am afraid that it is a little difficult to get into this law firm. Yuhwan thought, sliding the page, and suddenly saw that in the column of high school, Shin Yilin wrote F City No. 1 Middle School. The top-ranked middle school in the neighboring city, which is also the school that she and Gao Yan attended in high school. Chapter 4, Getting into Trouble. What's your specialty? Yuhwan called the person into her office. Yun. Criminal law. Shin Yilin. Criminal law? Yuhwan raised his eyebrows slightly and looked up from his desk. The teenager standing opposite clearly sensed the change in atmosphere. Well, but, I specialized in corporate law. I took a lot of specialized courses to get my degree quickly. Yeah. What do you think about corporate law? Jammed. You're not interviewing. Yuhwan frowned slightly. No need to impress me. Oh. Shin Yilin drifted into a state of realization and smacked his tongue. I'm not afraid that you won't take me anymore. What are you muttering? Nothing. The other shook his head and returned a big smile to her. His eyes curved as he smiled, dimples hidden in his cheeks, hardening a face she was familiar with in a way she wasn't. Let's go. Yuhwan froze and got up from her desk. I'll take you somewhere. The archive room? 2 minutes. Shin Yilin looked at the words on the door. Yuhwan pushed the door in. You can organize all the documents, information, and evidence here that the lawyers need to bring to the court on the designated date. I'll show you exactly how it works later, but for now I think you can start with some simple paperwork and learn about cases the firm has handled in the past as a lesson and reference. Yuhuan said as she casually flipped out a file and handed it to him. Doesn't sound too difficult. Shen Yilan, then I start now? Well, I've already emailed you the material, just fill it out as required and send it to me by the end of the day. Yuhuan nodded. Shen Yilan was very efficient, and handed Yuhuan the filled out materials 2 hours later. Only when it was time to leave work, he suddenly stood in front of her office door and knocked on the door. His guilty eyes and disheveled hair gave her a bad premonition all of a sudden. What's wrong? I want a list of the documents categorized in the archive room. Yuhuan gave him an extremely serious look. What did you do? Shen Yilan wanted to speak. Yuhuan crossed over him and went straight in the direction of the archive room. Standing in the doorway, she only saw that the filing cabinets were empty while a pile of documents were placed on the ground around them. What the hell did you do? Yuhuan frowned. Didn't you say that if you're free, you'll clean up the documents that are a bit older and put them inside the new cabinet? Shen Yilan didn't dare to look at her. Don't turn his head, and the tone of his voice followed suit. I just thought that if I took these documents out and reordered them, it would be easier to find the old records, but then I took them all out, and I realized that I was also a bit mixed up. He said, spreading his hands and pointing to the floor. Yuhuan held his forehead with a headache. One should be thankful that most of the other lawyers were out at this point in time nowadays. Yuhuan exhaled, reminding herself not to bother with the trainee, and only after a long time did she calm down. Alright, I know, I'll go get a sheet, and in a while, let's hurry up and rearrange these documents, the faster the better. You give me a list, I can do it myself. Shen Yilan spoke without much bottom. How long would you have to get it alone? Yuhuan glared at him. What if someone comes looking for the papers in the morning? Shen Yilan wanted to say something else. Yuhuan interrupted him. Hurry up and separate the folders, I'm going to print the list. Yuhuan printed a list over. The two began to turn over the documents according to the list back into the cabinet. There were just too many documents, and in no time Shen Yilan was directly sitting on his knees on the floor next to him. Here, the first 7 rows of the letters A. He iterated the documents he found in his arms as he pairs the sheets. Yuhuan was wearing a skirt. It is not convenient to sit down, can only step on high heels. Hard squatting. Shen Yilan saw the situation. Why don't you read it? I'll find it, and then hand it to you to put in the cabinet. He said, handing out his own list, and raised his chin toward her, signaling that there was a chair behind her. Yuhuan, facing his insistently outstretched hand, took the list, got up and sat down holding onto the chair next to her. The two of them were busy for 2 whole hours, and the documents were finally most of the time less. At this time, long after the closing time, outside the sky is already dark, the nearby buildings are lit up one after another bright lights. Yuhuan seemed to work overtime, took out his cell phone to order takeout, just pressed open. There is a message into is sent by Gao Banquet, asked, evening arrangements? The arrangement? She originally had. Now. Fizzled out. Yuhuan back, took a picture of the messy ground. Thanks to the blessing of your nephew, tonight overtime. Yilan broke into trouble? Almost instantly, the other side asked. Not really, just the files in the archive room is messed up. Yuhuan continued to return, waited for a while. The other side did not reply again. Shen Yilan, however, suddenly looked up. Boyfriend? Yuhuan. See, you keep staring at the phone. Shen Yilan, is it a boyfriend? No, just a message from a friend. Yuhuan clicked on the takeout interface. According to this speed, I still have to work overtime in a while. I'll order a takeout. What do you want to eat? Takeout. Shen Yilan looked at the screen. Whatever. The two continued to be busy for more than an hour. Nearly 9 o'clock finally recategorized all the documents. Yuhuan's cell phone is out of power, he did not notice. Back to the car to access the data line to reboot this only to see 2 unread messages. One is Shen Yilan's money transfer, the note is dinner. Yuhuan clicked return, which switched to another unread. Chapter 5. The message comes from Goyen, sent 3 hours ago, asking her, what was the original arrangement? Swimming. Yuhuan returned. Not a moment later the phone vibrated again. Busy? Yuhuan, Gao Yan, still swimming? At this point, the gym will soon be closed. Besides, she can't swim, there is no coach, and swimming is just a blind flutter. It's too late to catch up. Yuhuan back. Not a moment later, Gao Yan's message came in again, come to my home to swim. Chapter 5 Swimming. Gao Yan has recently moved to a new home with a large swimming pool. Yuhuan thought that he said she should go to his house to swim, but it was just another kind of polite invitation. She didn't think that when she arrived, Gao Yan really changed his swimsuit and waited for her at the pool. Luckily, she had a class date tonight, and she happened to have a swimsuit in the trunk of her car. She changed and went into the water, and Gao Yan saw the inflatable cup in her hand. You still can't swim? Yuhuan admitted not too kindly, still don't know how to change air. Breaststroke basic action essentials coach have taught, how to hit the legs, how to stroke arms when the head up to change air. Naiha once coherent on the problem, either the head just lifted up the body sinks down, or air change is not smooth, swim not 2 times began to choke on water. Yuhuan can only resort to cups, but Gao Yan came over, you don't bring this thing, I'll help you look at it. For the next half hour, Gao Yan found the problem and corrected Yuhuan by demonstrating it himself. When learning to swim at the gym, Yuhuan remembers that her instructor didn't go under the water even once, and now Gao Yan instead instructs her throughout the entire time in the water, and immediately holds her up when she sees that something is not right. This is something Yuhuan had not thought of before she came. Probably because today Xin Yilan and the company even tired her overtime. Just like in the past, she missed her idol's local concert tour because of a temporary case in his company. He then specially bought the best seats for her idol's next concert out of town, with a round-trip airfare as compensation. He had always been good at buying people's hearts, which was probably one of the reasons why Le Shang had gotten bigger and bigger over the years. Gao Yan taught very carefully. Yuhuan followed his advice and stomped her legs twice to change her breath once, and the problem of sinking was solved. She boldly swam 2 laps, and gradually she was able to stomp her legs once and change her breath. This method of yours is rather more suitable for me than what my coach taught me. After swimming smoothly from one end to the other for the first time, Yuhuan said with Gao Yan, are you saying that I'm better than what my coach taught me? Gao Yan poured a glass of champagne on the shore and handed it to Yuhuan. Want to buy lessons? He was always like this, jokingly, also a moment serious and incomparable appearance. But the exposed waist, the tightly wrapped hips of the swim trunks, and the low voice are very seductive. Let us swim here today, Yuhuan thought. Gao Yan noticed her gaze, once again went down to the water, took her cup and put it on the shore, pulled up her hand to her waist, pressed the back of her neck and pulled it towards himself, and took a step to bring the other person down to the pool wall of the pool. The next day, Yuhuan had just pushed open her office door when the smell of coffee hit her nose. Someone had placed a cup of coffee on her desk, along with a large box of Cheerios that appeared to have been washed, fresh beads of water rolling off the full heads. Offices usually don't have people who are solicitous for nothing. Yuhuan picked up the coffee and took a sip. It really did taste like yesterday's. Just as Xin Yilan knocks on the door, she asks, you made the coffee? And fruit. Xin Yilan painfully admitted, and added, staying up all night hurts your skin, add more vitamin C. There was some small-mindedness. Yuhuan found some typesetting and material collection work for Xin Yilan. He called out to him when he was about to go out, don't order takeout at noon, I'll take you for a stroll around the neighborhood. There was never a shortage of places to eat in the CBD neighborhood. But how to find a clean and hygienic restaurant with good taste and price, and without waiting for a table during the dining rush, is a learning experience. Yuhuan led Xin Yilan downstairs, informing him of all the suitable choices in the neighborhood and bringing him to one of the less easy-to-find restaurants. After being seated, Xin Yilan looked at the familiar hometown dishes on the menu. From what Nayati said, lawyer you're also from F City? Then, your high school was in? F City First High School. You really are my senior sister. Shin Yelan laughed and asked again, which class? Do you mean enrollment or graduation time? Yuhuan thought about it and reported a number for each. At this time Shin Yelan was a bit surprised. My uncle is also in this term. You guys wouldn't be classmates, right? Classmates? It should count. Yuhuan looked up from in front of the menu, but he and I are in different classes. Oh. Then did you guys know each other before? Chapter 6, Past Events. Know each other? Of course Yuhuan knew Gao Yan. In the first semester of her first year of high school, almost immediately after military training, Gao Yan became the man of the hour at school, the son of an outstanding entrepreneur in F City, with a good family background, good looks, and good at sports, although he had a somewhat misanthropic face, but that didn't stop the girls from falling for him. In contrast, Yuhuan is much more ordinary. She is not good at taking the initiative to socialize with others, and has been a loner since she entered school. Coupled with the fact that she speaks little and is often expressionless, many people misunderstand that she has a cold personality, and few people are willing to communicate with her more. At that time, she and he were in different classes. She was so focused on her studies that even though she didn't hear the girls in her class talk about his name, she didn't really care. Although they had a math teacher in common, and as a class representative, she occasionally bumped into him when she went in and out of the office. They never spoke alone or even made eye contact. Until one rainy afternoon, when she was in the office helping the teacher with her homework, and her stomach suddenly flipped over and hurt. It was actually a period, not a serious problem. But in high school, she was too thin and weak, and her qi and blood were seriously deficient, so every time she visited before her period, the first 2 days were like torture. If she happened to get cold before her period, the pain was even more of an order of magnitude. The teacher was shocked by her pale face, and was about to send her to the infirmary in a hurry. She pulled the other party back, and after half a day of stammering, the other party finally came to the realization, cough cough. Then, this way, you take half a day off, and I'll call your family to come and pick you up. Chapter 6. When she was in high school, Yuhuan's parents were working outside the home, and she stayed at her great-uncle's house. That day, no one happened to be at home, and the phone was busy for a long time. Yuhuan slumped over the table, stating that when she slowed down a bit, she could take a taxi back alone. Math, but the teacher was not at ease. He wanted to send her off, but he had no choice but to have an important meeting next, just as Gao Yan knocked on the door and came in, so he clapped his hands and gave the task of sending Yuhuan to Gao Yan. Can you walk by yourself? This was the first thing Gao Yan said to Yuhuan. Yuhuan covered her stomach with one hand and stood up reluctantly with one hand propped up on the table. Gao Yan looked at her and suddenly slightly looked away, then took off his own jacket. It's a bit cold outside, or you can put on my jacket first. That day, Yuhuan went home only to find that her pants were accidentally stained with a piece of blood. This was probably the reason why Gao Yan took off his jacket and gave it to her. But she wasn't aware of it at the time. It was just that when she looked up, she saw the teenager with a straight posture and a serious expression, the light hitting his beautiful face, and everything around him looked scribbled and scanty. Ghostly, she took the jacket. Gao Yan held the umbrella to send Yuhuan all the way out to the school gate, handed the umbrella to Yuhuan. He rushed into the rain to help her cut off the car. At that time, the teacher's intention was for Gao Yan to send her out of the school gate and call a cab for her. But when a cab finally stopped, Yuhuan collected her umbrella and handed it to Gao Yan, and just wanted to take off her clothes and return them to her, but the other party pulled open the door on the other side and got into the car first. I'd better send you home, this rain is getting heavier and heavier. Yuhuan could only follow and get into the car. F City is the rainy season after summer, and it rains almost every day, sometimes in continuous overcast, and occasionally in torrential downpours. That day was a light rain, but after the two got on the bus, the sky darkened all of a sudden, surging clouds covered the sky, and bean-sized raindrops suddenly fell with a thud. Although the closed car is isolated from the raging wind and rain outside, the car body is still beaten by the rainstorm and snapped. Yuan and Gao Yan sat at the two ends of the back seat, and the clamor just saved awkward conversations. Gao Yan looked sideways out the window. Yuan, who had eased off the pain for a while, took her first serious look at him through the rearview mirror. The dim and unclear outside view made half of his side face hidden in the shadows, not recognizable, but there was no denying that he had deep eyes, a straight nose, and with just the right amount of thin lips, he was indeed very enduring. It's no wonder that so many girls in the school regard him as a male god. On that day, Gao Yan sent Yuan to her neighborhood, holding an umbrella until she entered a dry place, before receiving the clothes she handed back to him, and turned his head to get on the car. At that time, smartphones were not yet popular, there was no WeChat, and money transfers were not popular. The cost of the taxi, Yuan was entrusted to the math teacher to return to Gao Yan, she said to him, only that day after arriving home a thank you. Since then, the two of them are still like strangers. Yuan sometimes wondered if Gao Yan didn't even know who she was giving away that day. She developed late, in junior high school, other girls developed one after another, only she was still like a bamboo pole in high school, no front and no back dash. As for her looks, her features were on the thick-faced side, and with her now full cheeks and rosy complexion, there might be a lot of people who would be willing to call her a beauty, but at that time, high school aesthetics weren't this trigram. Her oversized features framed in a dark, yellow face and thick glasses, not ugly, but with her thin figure, thrown into a crowd, it was just plain enough to be ordinary. No boy was willing to give her a second glance. Of course she wasn't featureless, at least she had excellent grades. But people will remember the first grade as, the second grade, and even barely remember the third grade, but the 8th and 9th grade? Not to mention the fact that later on, she was divided into arts, and Gao Yan was divided into science. Qingzuan and Minxue, Gao Banquet had the rest of the fun. One time, my classmate read a poem and pointed it out to Yuan. Yuan. She said, look, your name is even connected to Gao Yan. In fact, Yuan already knew that poem. But so what? Who would link the two of her and Gao Yan together? If it wasn't for the fact that she and he established contact for work reasons years later. She thought that Gao Yan might not even remember that there was someone named Yuan in his high school career. Chapter 7 Love Letter. Your uncle was the man of the hour at school at the time, so of course I knew him, but he shouldn't have known me. Yuan ordered her meal and put the menu aside. The man of the hour? Xin Yilan instantly smelled the flavor of gossip and hurriedly poured a cup of tea for Yuan. My mom said that many girls chased after him at that time, is there such a thing? Yeah. Yuan nodded, even I wrote him love letters. Really? Xin Yilan, however, didn't expect this and was filled with disbelief. Surprised? Yuan sipped his tea. No. Xin Yilan, you. Lawyer, you don't look like the kind of person who would write a love letter to someone. What if it's someone who pays for it? Huh? Xin Yilan was even more surprised, his jaw dropping. Yuan raised her eyes and looked at Xin Yilan, but her gaze gradually focused on another similar face in her memory through him. After the rainstorm incident, Gao Yan did not necessarily remember Yuan, but Yuan had no way of not noticing Gao Yan. He was the kind of person that made it difficult to avert one's gaze, and if one were to say and hard to say, he was somewhat similar to today's Xin Yilan, but not as sunny and cheerful, but with more of an accident and composure. His outstanding appearance let him in the crowd always have a kind of crane in the feeling, even inadvertently raised his hands and feet or like idle drama screenshot. What's more, he had a family history and brains. Yuan had corrected his math homework. He had a good hand at writing, and his logical thinking and sense of innovation were strong. But Yuan felt that these weren't the most rare thing, the most rare thing was that he never showed any superiority or untouchability, and was always impeccable in dealing with people, just like that time he sent her home. Although many years later, Yu Huan out of society, met a variety of people, only to understand there is a class of people in the relationship to show the proper and poise, not necessarily true tenderness, but only they grew up in the rich family environment and the abundance of a sense of superiority naturally acquired a kind of code of conduct is just. Chapter 7. They are happy to act nice, happy to give some favors because they are neither laborious nor hurtful, even if you can hardly say whether this is a more insidious and deeper form of arrogance. Because one is born superior, one is then interested in being unconsciously compassionate toward others. But it must be said that such a way of doing things, for those who rarely have the opportunity to experience it, according to the extremely powerful killing power. From the class flower to the very flower, from the school sister to the school sister. There was no shortage of people in the school who confessed their love for Gao Yan, but they were all decently rejected. However, there were still people who went ahead and followed. In the first semester of the second year of high school, there was a provincial essay competition. Yu Huan won the prize, and a transfer student from her class approached her and asked her to write a love letter on her behalf. Now that I think about it, Yu Huan can't remember the content of the love letter, just some admiration for each other, want to know each other words, and a few lines of poetry, maybe sour tea. Anyway, no matter how much effort is put into creating words and phrases, in the end, it will probably become meaningless waste paper. What Yu Huan wrote wasn't exactly heartfelt, but unexpectedly, Gao Yan actually accepted it, and even asked the other person out. Though the date didn't go too well and the two didn't end up together. So, because of this love letter, the two still met. Xin Yilan's focus was a bit off. What kind of love letter was it? Did Uncle later know that you wrote this love letter? Yu Huan, that's not the point, is it? If a girl's looks aren't your favorite type, would you agree to go out with her because the other person's love letter is well written? She asked Xin Yilan. Xin Yilan couldn't refute it. So it's not the love letter that matters. Yu Huan, besides, the other party paid for it, so it's her love letter. How much? My living expenses for a week. That's not a very high payment. You know again? No. Xin Yilan shook his head, but you don't look like the kind of person who would spend money frivolously. Yu Huan. That said, even if the other party pays, according to the copyright law, the other party only has the right to use it, you still own the copyright. The food is served. Hurry up and eat. Chapter 8. The Wedding. Xin Yilan adapted quickly in the law firm, except for the oops on the first day, nothing went wrong later. In a flash, it was the weekend. Yu Huan had a wedding to attend, the wedding of Liang Shiyun, the former CEO of the partner company Leader Real Estate. The groom is a famous architectural designer, but also the bride's college classmate. The two are each other's first love, and they are back together again in a roundabout way, which is more like a novel than a romance novel. Gao Yan also attended the wedding as the best man. He wore the same color suit as the groom, only the bow tie was replaced with a tie. It was fortunate that the groom was also a talented man, otherwise, with Gao Yan's aura and appearance, he would have been the center of attention at the entire venue. Yu Huan sat far away from the guests' table and watched him being surrounded by the crowd. A group of people went up to him to talk and toast. Have to admire, no matter what circle he mixes like a fish in water, that scene cannot help but make Yu Huan recall the distant high school love. It wasn't until the wedding started, after the simple ceremony and into the speeches of family and friends, that she was pulled back into her thoughts. It's my honor to be the best man at this wedding. I'm the groom's college roommate and the bride's college classmate, Gao Yan. On the raised platform with the red carpet, Gao Yan took the microphone and turned to face the pair of wallflowers. As you can see, the two are college classmates, but if you're asking how the two got together, I think I should get a share of the credit dash. He began to tell the couple's past, how the groom, because of his encouragement to participate in a competition to attract the attention of the bride, how the two fell in love, and how to secretly hide from classmates to secretly fall in love. how to break up because of long-distance relationship, many years later, how the two reunited because of one of his projects. It's been 10 years, and I count myself as a witness to their hardships and perseverance along the way, finally tying the knot. The corners of his mouth pulled into a heartfelt smile as he nodded to them before turning to the audience. Let's all wish them happiness. He was a natural leader, and whatever he spoke was contagious. The stage burst into applause as the words fell from his lips. However, right in the midst of the applause and uproarious congratulations, Yuan heard a gossip. That was a good speech. It would have been even better if he had included the part where he was courting a human bride. Haha, can you stop being so detrimental? Seriously, I really quite admire him. He was so vocally pursuing Liang Shiyun in the first place, and today Liang Shiyun and Chu Xiao got married, and he's actually coming to be the best man now. He really thinks that his classmates don't have any memories of. How else is he the one who made it big? As long as he's not embarrassed, it's others who are embarrassed. Haha. Next to them, two men talked in a slightly sour tone. Jealousy was on display under their seemingly appreciative, but actually teasing accents. Yuan was not surprised. What was surprising was the content of the conversation. Gao Yan had pursued Liang Shiyun. Yuan went to see Liang Shiyun on the stage. She wore a tailored white sari, revealing her sexy collarbone, wearing a fresh and elegant veil. The whole person seemed like a dewy lily, elegant but not losing the delicate color. From her past contact with her, in addition to her beauty, the other party's character and talent were also on the upper echelon. This kind of Liang Shiyun, as a woman, Yuan also felt like looking at her. But just as Xin Yelin said, you don't look like the kind of person who would write love letters to people. Gao Yan also didn't look like the kind of person who would pursue the opposite sex. From those girls who wrote love letters in high school, to the women she had seen in the past few years, who had gone to great lengths to try to stick to his side, there had been no shortage of the opposite sex around him, but he had never shown too much favor or care for anyone. His girlfriend in high school was the other one who pursued him first, and the one he broke up with 2 years ago did the same. Before Yuan and Gao Yan became fuck buddies, he had inadvertently bumped into his ex-girlfriend breaking up with him. The other party accused him of breaking up with her. The other accused him of looking like a good boyfriend, being considerate and accommodating, and preparing surprises and gifts for the holidays, but always missing a little initiative, a little heart. Chapter 8. Do you really care about me? Why do I get the impression that you care about just the 3 words girlfriend, whoever brings that title with them, and that I'm nothing special and can be replaced by you at any time? These were the other party's original words. It was hard for Yuan to imagine what it would be like for someone like Gao Yan to really like and pursue someone. The wedding speech was good. I heard that the bride is your goddess, so you can find me if you want to cry. Retracting her gaze, Yuan sent a message. At this time, Gao Yan was still on the stage, completing the final photo of family, friends, and the newlyweds, and he fumbled with his phone to look at it, suddenly looking up at the stage. His gaze swept across the audience, and when he reached Yuan's table, he paused slightly, in what appeared to be a very careless glance. But with this glance, Yuan was sure that he had glanced at her, because his gaze contained a slight dissatisfaction and warning. Perhaps one should not joke about this. Yuan lowered her head. Suddenly her cell phone gently vibrated. A text message came in. It was from Gao Yan. Buried in your chest crying? Really shouldn't have joked about this. Yuan frowned. Before she could reply, her phone vibrated again. Still a message from Gao Yan. For numbers, looks like a room number, and it's followed by a sentence. Come over in 5 minutes. Chapter 9. Cheating. The crowd was at the wedding venue. Through the empty aisle, Yuan came to the room that Gao Yan sent. The door of the room was hidden. She gently pushed it open. Gao Yan was sitting on the leather sofa chair by the window, with the wind at his back and against the light. He was smoking a cigarette. The gauze curtains were gently drummed by the wind, and the room still smelled of smoke that hadn't dissipated. Seeing Yuan come in, Gao Banquet pressed the almost dry cigarette in his hand into the ashtray on the low table in front of him, and greeted him with, "Coming?" A bottle of wine that is waking up, a few dishes and a plate of snacks are placed on the coffee table, all of which have not been touched. Why don't you eat the light? Yuhuan asked. Sad, can't eat. Gao Yan sank into the seat and looked up at her. His entire body was against the light, his stern lines couldn't see much of his specific expression, but his tone was clearly teasing. Yuhuan had joked with him before and was still vaguely worried that it wasn't right, thinking that in looking at him like this, she instead put her heart down. That's right, being a human being to the extent that he is, what is there that really deserves his sadness? Yuhuan tilted her head. Is the food in this hotel bad? She said, placing her handbag to the side on the long sofa, and picked up her chopsticks to pick up a piece of dim sum. The soft and sticky strip of dense cake had a good flavor, it was just a bit sweet, so she took the wine glass next to her and poured some wine. Pale garnet red wine, fresh aroma, light body, tan and damping sense is just right, although Yuhuan does not know too much about red wine, but also drink out of this bottle of wine should not be cheap. It was just enough to make up for the gift money she had sent out. She simply sat down on the other side of the sofa and ate with a mouthful of wine and a mouthful of food. Seeing this, Gao Yan also gave himself a glass of wine as well, but still did not move his chopsticks and just watched Yuhuan eat. The seat was wide, and he sat at the other end of the sofa, his eyes roaming over her body with abandon as she moved, clearly saying that when she had enjoyed herself enough, it was his turn to enjoy her. Being stared at by such a burning gaze, Yuhuan's body followed the agitation, and for a while the oral desire became less important. Alright, I'm ready, are you going to start crying? Taking one last sip of wine, she wiped her mouth and leaned back slightly, puffing out her chest. Oh? Goyan's glass stopped in the air and he raised his eyes to look at her, then lowered his gaze to her breasts. Clothes, aren't they coming off? Yuhuan had to go and undo her own buttons. The white shirt had just been opened 3 buttons, and the black lace was exposed. With just one glance, Gao Yan's gaze became dull. Together, he said. Yuhuan raised an eyebrow and backhandedly continued to unbutton the lingerie behind her. If it was hard to compare, Yuhuan had always felt that her body was more attractive than her face. Her development was stunted in high school, and she had been as thin as a bamboo pole, so when she got to college she was frantically trying to find compliments, eating papaya until she threw up, drinking milk until she threw up, and working out to intentionally work out her pecs. Now that she thought about it, she wasn't sure if those efforts were useful or not. But in the years between college and graduation, she did develop. Her slightly accelerated breath shuddered. Come here. Even Goyan's voice was dark at the moment. I like your perfume today. It smells better than last time. Where is there any perfume, but it's just the smell of body odor that's been covered for a long time and some residual laundry detergent. Yuhuan thought, but didn't say it out loud. She raised her head, and soon her breathing messed up her rhythm. They rarely did things like this during the day. It was always a dark night, and no more than a dimly lit dusk. Yuhuan was a bit uncomfortable, and couldn't help but want to free her mind to chat about something, like the gossip she heard today. I heard that you madly pursued Mr. Liang in the beginning. Yuhuan climbed onto Gao Yan's shoulder, so how crazy? Gao Yan held her waist in a false grip and frowned slightly at her words, writing letters, sending flowers, and confessing. The concise answer was perfunctory. That's it? This was a bit of a gap from the madness in Yuhuan's mind, and she couldn't help but pursue the question. Then what do you think should happen? Gao Yan raised his eyes to look at her. Yuhuan rolled her eyes in an attempt to think. But when she was about to open her mouth, Gao Yan suddenly clasped his waist with a firm blow. It's better to concentrate at times like this. This is not bad, Yuhuan thought as she tilted her head. This was their usual mode of getting along, not needing much communication, only desire and instinct. She simply closed her eyes, completely indulging in the world of sensuality. The alcohol she drank began to take effect. So did Goyan. The air in the room seemed to become stuffy with it. No energy? Gao Yan asked, holding her up in her silence. Yuhwan realized she was standing on the balcony when her feet hit the ground. What are you doing? This is outdoors? Realizing only one point, Yuhwan covered her chest and subconsciously had to head back to the house. Chapter 9. Gao Yan, however, blocked her path. There is no one, he said, wrenching her shoulder and turning around. Below the tall building was a sea, the waves constantly lapping at the shore, the breeze carried the salty smell of seawater, and the outside was indeed empty. Yuhwan then relaxed. Gao Yan took his suit jacket off and draped it over her shoulders, letting her bend over and grab the railing. Yuhwan welcomed the wind and stood. The low temperature coupled with the excitement of the outdoors made her entire body unconsciously tense everywhere from top to bottom. Don't be so tense. The sea rolls over with white waves, the bright midday sun shines on the waves and sparkles, the entire surface of the sea seems to be sprinkled with diamonds. Yuhwan was caught between her sturdy chest and the transparent railing behind her, her consciousness floating, and she couldn't help but remember that when she fantasized about her own wedding once upon a time, she had also thought about hosting a wedding banquet by the sea. Imagining that it was also this beautiful weather, and the sun was also this dazzling. And now, right in the middle of this dazzling sunshine, in the middle of someone else's wedding, she was cheating on her best man with the hotel balcony. The feeling was a bit absurd. Will you come to my wedding in the future? The unceasingly shaking vision was a little blurry, and in a trance, Yuhwan suddenly opened her mouth. She also did not know why she opened her mouth. As her words fell, the person behind her clearly stalled. She turned around and was met with his slowly focused gaze and the frown that followed. Beads of sweat rolled down from his forehead, his lips pursed, not knowing if it was because her question was too presumptuous, leaving him at a loss as to how to answer, or if it was too much of a spoiler to bring up this kind of question at the moment, and he didn't want to ask or answer. Yuhwan finally averted her eyes. Just kidding. Chapter 10. Gossip. You didn't go to Mr. Liang's wedding over the weekend? On Monday, in the pantry, coworker Amy asked Yuhwan. Went. Yuhwan stirred her coffee, remembering the ridiculousness of that day. She couldn't help but lower her eyes, but then I was a bit uncomfortable and went back first. Oh. Amy answered, not noticing the subtle change in her tone. I heard the bride and groom went to college together? She asked again after arriving late and not hearing Goyan's speech. Yuhwan took a light sip of coffee and nodded. I have another wedding to attend next month, and the bride and groom are also classmates. Amy said, pondering for a moment before speaking again. So many couples who broke up during their student days later came back together after graduation. It seems like most people are more inclined to look for old classmates when looking for a marriage partner. Why do you think that is? Because you know the roots? Yuhwan put down her cup. Then those who met later, where the feelings of the student era are more pure? After all, when one is a student, one considers fewer things, and when one enters society, one needs to weigh the pros and cons in various ways. Amy sniffed and fell into thought again. Yuhwan couldn't help but tease. Could it be that you also want to look for old classmates? Or do you have classmates looking for you? No, I'm just thinking out loud. Amy quickly waved her hand, and suddenly looked at Yuhwan again. Do you have such a candidate? Yuhwan froze for a moment. A certain face flashed in his mind, but only smiled bitterly and shook his head. No. Amy, however, saw something wrong from this short pause. Really no? Really no? Yuhwan could only declare again. Shin Yilin, however, appeared out of nowhere. What there is no. Gossip is more than just a woman's nature. Amy and Yuhwan looked at each other and smiled. Amy carried the cup out, while Yuhwan turned to look at Shin Yilin. Rested for a weekend is very spirited. Well, have you gone somewhere to play? No, unpacked courier for 2 days. So in addition to gossip, he is also obsessed with online shopping? Yuhwan suddenly a little skeptical of Shin Yilin's sexual orientation. The other side can see the wrong in her eyes, and hastily voiced, it's all simple furniture and soft furnishings law. The place I live in now only has basic furniture, nothing. Shin Yilin explained again. After I came back, I found that domestic online shopping is really particularly convenient, so I bought a bunch of things online. A lot of them have to be assembled, so I left it for the weekend to dismantle them all at once. Oh. Yu Huan's gaze returned to normal. You didn't live with your parents? They're abroad. Question mark. Yu Huan, I thought you came back from studying abroad. It turns out that you've been right over there all along. That's not right. He clearly studied in F-City in high school. Yu Huan was a bit puzzled. Not the United States. My parents, they were in Canada. They immigrated out when I was a sophomore. Shin Yilin had to continue to explain. My parents are engaged in jewelry design. You know, this line is not much attention in the country, especially after Grandpa decided to enter the real estate. As early as when I was 2 years old, my parents applied for self-employed immigrants, but at that time, my grandparents had a messy divorce, and my uncle was underage. My mom couldn't rest assured. Later, my uncle got older and my grandmother's health was not good. So they kept dragging their feet until 2 years ago when they finally managed to emigrate there. Shin Yilin said that her grandmother's health is not good when a slight pause, although there are no words. Yu Huan also guessed the back omitted. Her grandmother had passed away. Shin Yilin's grandmother, Gao Yan's mother, Yan Yuhua, Ms. Yan, like Gao Yan's father, Gao Qing, was a famous entrepreneur in F-City. The history of the two of them making a fortune could be considered legendary in F-City. Both of them started from nothing by selling small commodities, founded the largest jewelry company in F-City and established their own jewelry brand, and then met the wind of transformation, in 2004, when real estate began to rise, merged and acquired a local real estate company, and established the largest building materials city in F, and then entered the real estate industry on a large scale, until today's Leshang. Regardless of Gao Qing, or Yan Yuhua, in F-City are household names of the legend. At the high school centennial celebration, Yu Huan had seen a glimpse of Ms. Yan herself from afar, and in that era when self-media was still undeveloped, Ms. Yan looked significantly prettier and wiser than in the photo, competent and amiable, just not in good spirits. She was said to have been diagnosed with cancer at that time. For 7 or 8 years since then, she has been battling the disease. Because of her condition, she faded into obscurity until 2 years ago, when F's local news reported on her once again, but it was the news that she had passed away as her cancer worsened. Chapter 10. So, you live alone? Yu Huan asked Shin Yilin. She actually thought, where's your grandfather? And then she quickly remembered Gao Cheng's behavior of letting himself go these past few years. According to Gao Yan's disdainful revelation, Gao Cheng's new girlfriend was just less than 2 years older than Shin Yilin. Shin Yilin was probably as disgruntled as Gao Yan, so Yu Huan changed her question to, is it far from here? It's quite close, but I'm only interning here, and I might have to change my place of residence in a few months, Shin Yilin exhaled. Originally, I wanted to stay at my uncle's place first, but he actually told me it was inconvenient. It's not like he has a girlfriend right now, he doesn't even know what's inconvenient. He couldn't help but spit. This Yu Huan is not convenient to speak. But Shin Yilin was still too simple, she thought. A man so-called not having a girlfriend, who knows if he really doesn't have a girlfriend or if there's something else fishy going on. Chapter 11 Differences. In the afternoon, Yu Huan took Shin Yilin to deal with a newly taken case, a case involving the leakage of trade secrets. Although Yu Huan was not good at litigation, Roan Industries was a partner at the beginning of the law firm's establishment, and after discussing with Fred, Yu Huan recommended reliable litigation lawyers to the other party, while taking Shin Yilin to follow up on the project together. The three agreed on a time to go to Roan Industries together. It was not the first time for Yu Huan to come here, and she took them through the glass-partitioned offices to a conference room with ease. In the conference room, Eric, Rona's security engineer, got up and, after greeting them briefly, explained what had happened and logged into the internal system, showing them every step of the way through the system. This part had little to do with legal work, and Eric could only try to put it in terms the three could understand. Do you understand? When Eric and the lawyer in charge of the litigation were invited to another office by Rona's boss, Yu-Huan asked Shin Yilin. Shin Yilin summarized. To put it simply, it means someone sneaked in and stole the piece of paper with the secret formula written on it. Those who came out of computer science majors are really different. Yu-Huan sighed with emotion and continued to raise her unanswered question. According to Eric, there isn't a single piece of information in Rona's network that doesn't have at least one level of redundancy, including the data that was stolen. Just after the opening, a knock was heard on the door. Yu-Huan looked up and saw that Rona's personnel and administrative director, Manny, was standing at the glass doorway, holding a pot of tea and several cups on a tray. Thanks. Yu-Huan got up and walked around the chair to help Manny open the door, taking the tray in her hand. We can just do this kind of thing ourselves. Fei at the front desk had to go out for something. I saw that you guys don't even have a cup of water here yet, so I made some tea for you and brought it over. Manny took the cups out of the tray while asking, "Who is this?" "This is the new intern from our law firm," Yu-Huan said, and without waiting for her to continue the introduction, Manny had already extended his hand towards Shin Yilin. "Hello, I'm Manny, Rona's head of personnel." "Hello." Shin Yilin paused for a moment and extended his hand. He was taken out by Yu-Huan once today, so he changed into formal attire in advance. Perhaps the way he seriously analyzed the situation just now was too much like that, not at all like a tender newcomer in his early 20s. Manny also showed her surprise. "That's why you graduated?" Shin Yilin nodded his head, coyly, finally regaining a bit of his usual childishness. However, Manny didn't mind, fondly letting go of his hand, continued, "Which school did you go to? To be able to enter Zhongyou, it should be quite impressive." Most of the employees here in Rona are male, and Manny, who is quite attractive, has always been a goddess-like existence here, and it's the first time that Yu-Huan has seen him taking the initiative to talk to a man. However, most of the employees here are unkempt. Even Eric, who looks slightly better, can't make people salivate because of the plaid shirts he wears all year round. Compared to them, Shin Yilin was proper fresh meat. No wonder Manny took the initiative to strike up a conversation, and even took out the bone china tea set that was usually only used to entertain important clients. Yu-Huan immediately put down her teacup with a sense of humor. "You guys chat, I'm going to the restroom." When Yu-Huan came out of the restroom, Eric and the others had not yet returned. From afar, she saw through the glass door that there were only two people in the conference room, Shin Yilin and Manny, not knowing what they were chatting about, and the smile on Manny's face never stopped. "What are you chatting about so happily?" Yu-Huan smiled and pushed the door, going to the cell phone that she had just forgotten, making a gesture to go out again. "Counselor Yu." "I thought of it," Shin Yilin, but called out to her. "I remembered, just now Eric said that the backups are done every day in the middle of the night, right?" Yu-Huan? "Yes." Then the stolen data Shin Yilin waved at him and brought her back to the table, tapping the sketch on his tablet, theoretically bypassing the security system and entering the network. According to the firewall and Eric's top security measures, it should look something like this. "I'll leave you guys to it." Manny saw the two discussing and got up and brought the door with him. Once he left, Shin Yilin stopped. Yu-Huan looked at him sideways. "Continue." "I actually didn't think of it, let's wait for Eric to come back." Shin Yilin smiled somewhat sheepishly. Yu-Huan instantly realized that he was using her as a shield. This refusal of his is really taking care of people's face? Yu-Huan looked at the person scratching his head in front of her and couldn't help but think of his uncle again. Previously, when she and Gao Yan went out to do business, there was a similar scene, and she also walked away as smartly as she did today, but not long after she walked away, she received a message from Gao Yan, "Come back." Even though it was only 2 short words, Yu-Huan read serious dissatisfaction in it. Yu-Huan had to turn back. The woman had been sent away long ago, only Gao Yan smoking a cigarette, meaningfully raising his eyes to glance at her. In fact, when it came to dealing with men and women, Gao Yan was much sharper than Xin Yan. Whether it was in high school or nowadays, although he would also be a gentleman and scruple to protect the face of women, but he also rejected them without ambiguity. He even went so far as to say no to those who were not interested in him. For those who weren't interested, he wouldn't even talk too much with them. How did such a Takayasu get involved with her?